Ever feel like you're stuck, kind of like on a hamster wheel,
Yeah.
working like crazy just to keep up with everything?
Oh, tell me about it.
I mean, you're not alone if you feel that way.
Hmm.
The author of this book, Work Less, Live More, he starts off with that exact feeling, swamped, 80-hour work weeks, thinking there was no way out.
Yeah.
But then he finds this whole 16-hour work week solution, and it makes you wonder, is that even, like, is that for real?
Right.
Could we actually work less and still, thrive? So that's what we're going to deep dive into. Is this radical change just a fantasy,
Yeah.
or is it a real possibility?
Well, one of the things I love about how the book starts is it takes us way back in time
Okay.
to show that this whole idea of work that we have now, it's not like some unchangeable law, right? It's not like gravity. We're going to go way back, like further than the Industrial Revolution. We're talking hunter-gatherer times.
Oh, wow. It's such a mind-blowing shift in perspective when you think about it like that, because back then, work was it was survival.
Totally.
You work to eat, end of story.
Yep.
And then comes the agricultural revolution, and bam, we've got surplus food. We have this idea of owning land, and we even have, like, a bit of free time.
Right. But it's really the Industrial Revolution that kind of cements the 40-hour work week as like the standard, right? And here's the thing the book really emphasizes. It wasn't some like carefully calculated optimal system.
Yeah.
It was a compromise. Like
Yeah.
born out of the labor movements of the time.
Interesting.
So you remember Robert Owen from like way back in the 19th century?
Wait, who was that again? Remind me.
So he was this social reformer, and get this, he campaigned for a 10-hour workday.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like, even back then, people were like, this is too much, we need balance.
Right.
And his slogan, I love this, it was 8 hours labor, 8 hours recreation, 8 hours rest.
Oh, I kind of like that. That's catchy.
Right.
It really emphasizes how, again, this work week we have, it's not a law, it's something we made up. It's a social thing, which means, well, we could change it, theoretically.
Exactly. And that's why this historical context is so important, right? Because
Yeah.
if we could go from like agrarian society to an industrial one,
Yeah.
who's to say another shift isn't possible?
Right. So then if shorter work weeks are historically possible, like, why haven't we all switched over? The book gets into these, like, psychological barriers, which I thought was fascinating, about why we say yes to more work even when we're, like, fried.
Yes.
And it's not just laziness, right?
Yeah.
It's deeper than that.
No, not at all. It goes deep. The book talks about like fear of social ostracization. Like we're hardwired to want to belong.
Right.
And
Yeah.
saying no to your boss, even if it's reasonable, it feels risky.
It's like you're the only one who didn't stay late. Even if there's, like, nothing to do, you feel guilty.
Exactly.
Like, should I be here? Am I not a team player?
Right. And then there's this whole thing, the book calls it the difficulty with saying no phenomenon.
Okay.
Like, we're afraid of rejection, we want to be liked, and then there's job insecurity on top of that. So
Yeah.
we end up prioritizing other people's needs, even if it means sacrificing our own time, our own well-being.
Totally. But what I liked is the book doesn't just point these out and then leave us there. It actually gives advice on how to deal with them.
Right, yeah.
Like, remember the sandwich method for saying no?
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that again.
So you start with something positive, right?
Okay.
Then you slip in the no thing, and then you finish with another positive.
Yeah.
So you're being assertive, but you're not, like, burning bridges.
Right. I like that.
And the book also says to set clear boundaries, which I struggle with that, and this one was big for me. Document your workload.
Oh, interesting.
Because then when you go to your boss, it's not just you being like, I don't want to, you're like proof.
It's data.
Yes, exactly.
So key.
Yeah.
That changes the conversation. It's not a personal favor. It's about efficiency and results, which, speaking of, let's go from like the history stuff to what's happening right now. Technology.
Right.
Just like that Industrial Revolution, AI, automation, machine learning, this stuff is shaking things up as we speak.
Right.
And this is where the book gets really, really interesting, I think.
It would be easy to be scared.
Right.
Right. Like, robots are taking our jobs.
Totally.
But the book makes this argument that it's not about replacing jobs entirely. It's about working smarter.
Yeah.
They have this example about, like, car manufacturing. Used to be all manual labor, right?
Right.
Now it's robots on an assembly line.
Right.
But we're still doing 8-hour shifts. Let me see, because, like, are we about to look back on the 40-hour work week and be like, oh, so old-fashioned?
It's like the fax machine of work schedules, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about. The book talks about,
Yeah.
like, AI coding, AI customer service.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so many things that could be automated even now.
And it's already happening, right?
Right.
I mean, this doesn't mean everyone listening needs to become a coder tomorrow, right?
Well,
But it's like, we gotta adapt, learn new skills, because this is the world we're moving into.
yeah.
And what I love is it's not just theory. There are companies out there who are already trying out these shorter work weeks.
Okay, got to hear about this. Give me the good stuff.
Okay, so there's this brewery, Keegan Trumer Brewery.
Already like them.
Right. They switched to a 4-day work week.
Okay, but did their productivity just like...
It went up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Increased productivity, still met customer demand, no problem. And it's not just them. The book talks about, get this, a Swedish nursing home.
Wait, a nursing home? That seems... Don't you need people there all the time?
That's what's so interesting, right? They redesigned tasks, they got better at communication, and they totally changed how they thought about staffing. And guess what? Happier nurses, better care for the patients, and fewer sick days. It's like win-win-win.
Wow. Okay, so if a nursing home can figure this out,
Right.
that makes me think it's possible in more industries than we realize.
Exactly. And the book highlights that over and over. It's not about the specific industry. It's about, are we willing to rethink how work gets done at a fundamental level?
Right.
Are we willing to question these assumptions that we have about productivity, about time management, about all of it?
Okay, so we've got the history, we've got the tech stuff, we've got companies proving it's possible, but what about me? Like, where do I fit into all this?
Right.
That's where I think the book gets really, really practical.
Totally.
Because it gives you advice you can use, even if your company's not about to ditch the 40-hour work week tomorrow.
Right.
And one of the things they talk about, which I thought was really interesting, is freelancing.
Oh, yeah.
Not even just as a side hustle, but as, like, a preview of the future of work.
It's a glimpse into what could be, right?
Right. I'm really interested in this because it seems like everybody's got a side hustle these days.
It's true.
So what does the book say about how freelancing ties into all of this?
So it argues that freelancing, it's not just about, like, making extra cash on the side. It's a whole different way of thinking about work. You have more flexibility, you have more control over what projects you take on,
Right.
and potentially you can make more money.
Right. And you're judged on what you get done, not just how long you're sitting at your desk,
Exactly.
which is interesting.
And the numbers kind of back this up. In 2019, there were 57.2 million Americans freelancing.
Wow.
And get this, 51% of them said no way they'd go back to a traditional job no matter how much it paid.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
That's a statement.
It is. Now, the book's not naive about it. There are challenges, right? Income's not always steady. Maybe you don't have benefits. You're always hustling for the next client.
Yeah.
But it represents this shift. We're starting to value what you produce, not just how many hours you put in.
So even if, like, this 16-hour work week seems way out there, just the ideas in the book, it seems really relevant to how a lot of us are working right now.
Absolutely. And what's cool is it doesn't just leave us with these big, huge ideas. It gives us stuff we can try now.
Okay, yeah, give me some of that. What can we actually do today, even if we're not quitting our jobs tomorrow to go freelance?
Well, the book dives into all these time management techniques,
Okay.
but it actually starts with something even more basic than that.
What's
It's
that?
like understanding your own work patterns.
Okay.
Like, are you a morning person? You know, you get your best work done before anyone else is even awake.
Right.
Or are you like a night owl? You come alive when the distractions are gone.
It's funny you mention that because, yeah, I'm a total night owl, but my job, it's like I have to be on first thing in the morning. So I'm starting to think maybe I've been working against myself this whole time.
And that's exactly what the book's getting at. Like, once you know when you're most productive,
Yeah.
that's when you schedule those like really important tasks.
Okay.
And don't think you have to like ditch all technology to work less. Actually use it to your advantage. There are so many tools now
Oh, yeah.
to automate things, streamline your work,
Yeah.
free up your mental space.
Email filters. Lifesaver. No more scrolling forever to find that one important message.
Exactly. Or how about scheduling tools?
Oh, yeah.
Game changer. They help you allocate time for different tasks. They remind you about deadlines.
Right.
Some even tell you to take a break.
Speaking of, the book really emphasizes that rest, it's not just about avoiding burnout.
Yeah.
It's actually key for doing your best work.
It's true. It's like you wouldn't drive a car without ever stopping for gas, would you?
Right.
Eventually, you're going to run out of steam.
Yeah.
We need to get rid of this always-on mentality,
Yeah.
and realize that rest, it's as important as work if you want to be high-performing.
So it's not about, like, cramming more into our day.
Yeah.
Time management is about being smart about how we use the time we have.
Exactly. And here's the really encouraging part. Time management is a skill,
Okay.
which means you can learn it, you can get better at it. The
Mhm.
book even suggests that, like, with practice, people can go from feeling totally overwhelmed by a 60-hour work week
Yeah.
to managing a 16-hour work week really effectively
Wow.
without sacrificing results or, like, their well-being. It's pretty cool.
Okay, you've convinced me. Time management, super important.
Yeah.
But where do I even start?
Right.
Does the book give you any, like, specific techniques?
Absolutely. Have you ever tried the Pomodoro technique?
I've heard of it. I always thought it was more for, like, students cramming for an exam, not, a full-time job.
It might sound simple,
Okay.
but it works no matter what you do. Basically, you work for 25 minutes straight.
Right.
Then you take a 5-minute break. You do that 4 times. And then you give yourself a longer break, like 15, 20 minutes.
So you're breaking up your day into these smaller chunks.
Yeah,
And then you build in breaks so you don't get burned out.
exactly. It works because you're working with your brain, not against it.
Right.
And when you take those breaks, go for a walk, stretch, just look away from your screen for a minute, you come back refreshed.
That makes sense. I know, like, when I try to power through without breaks, I get to the end of the day and I feel like I did a worse job.
Exactly.
What else does the book say? Any other, like, time management hacks?
Another great one is time blocking.
Okay.
So you assign blocks of time in your day to certain things.
Okay.
So for example, maybe you block off like an hour in the morning for emails,
Okay.
then 2 hours for a specific project,
Right.
then a half hour for lunch, whatever works for you.
So it's like having a schedule,
Yeah,
but, like, a flexible one.
exactly. It keeps you organized, helps you focus on what's important, and reduces that feeling of just being totally overwhelmed.
Okay, I'm already feeling more organized just hearing about it.
Right.
What else? What else?
Okay, one more. Understanding those peak productivity times.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about that.
Exactly. Some people are morning people, some people are night owls. Everyone has times when they're naturally more focused.
Oh, yeah. Like, if I try to do my hardest work in the afternoon, forget it. It takes twice as long, and it's not even good.
Exactly. That's why knowing your own rhythms is so important. Once you figure it out, you have to, like, guard those times with your life.
Right?
Important tasks go in those slots, and don't be afraid to let people know, hey, unless it's an emergency, I'm off limits during this time.
Game changer.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start paying attention to that this week. See if I can figure out when those golden hours are for me.
I think it'll make a huge difference. Now, we've talked a lot about what individuals can do, right?
Right.
But the book doesn't just stop there. It goes on to talk about, like, how would a 16-hour work week affect society as a whole?
Ooh. See, that's what I'm curious about. Because it sounds great for, one person,
Right.
but on a larger scale, how would that even work?
Right. So one of the big questions is, what happens to jobs? Like, if everyone's working less, does that just mean there are fewer jobs to go around?
Right, that's what I would think.
And it's a valid concern. And the book, it digs right into that.
Okay, so what's the other side of it?
So the book makes this case that it's not as simple as just, like, dividing up the same amount of work, right?
Okay.
It says that a shorter work week, it could actually create more jobs,
Really?
but in different areas.
Oh, interesting. Okay, how so?
So think about it. If people have more free time, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
They're going to spend money on leisure, travel, education, all that stuff.
Right.
Things they maybe didn't have the time or energy for before.
Right.
So that increased demand in those areas, it could lead to brand new jobs being created.
It's like this ripple effect.
Exactly.
Instead of it being this, like, limited pie that we all have to fight over, maybe it actually makes the pie bigger
Exactly.
by, like, helping the economy in a different way.
I love how you put that, yeah. And it's not just about money either.
Yeah.
The book says a shorter work week, it could help make things fairer when it comes to wealth.
Oh, okay. Now that's interesting. Tell me more about that. How would that work?
So right now, it feels like the system is kind of rigged to benefit people who already have money, right?
Right.
They can afford to work less. They can pay other people to do stuff for them.
Right.
They can invest in ways that, like, make them more money. But if everybody had more time, more flexibility,
Yeah.
maybe that gap between, like, the haves and the have-nots, it wouldn't be so big, or at least it wouldn't grow as fast.
Hmm.
It would be a huge change, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thought, right?
It is. It really makes you think about what work even means, in this day and age.
Yeah.
Are we just cogs in a machine?
Hmm.
Or can we make work, I don't know, more human?
Right, right. Like a system that cares about, I don't know, well-being, creativity, community,
Right.
not just like profits and how much stuff we make.
Yeah.
And speaking of the world around us, the book also brings up this really important point about the environment.
Oh, right. You hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, of course. Like less commuting, using less stuff, how much we work definitely affects the planet.
For sure. If people are driving less, consuming less, just living less frantically,
Right.
that's got to be good for the environment.
Right.
And again, it's about values, right? Realizing that a healthy planet, it's pretty important for a good work-life balance.
So it's not just about working less. It's about making a future that's like sustainable for everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, the book's not like pretending this is easy.
Right.
There would be challenges, right? Like we'd have to rethink things like social safety nets, how we educate people for jobs that are like constantly changing, maybe even our entire economic system.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a tall order.
Right.
But the book doesn't say it's impossible.
Okay.
It's more like, this is a conversation we need to start having as a society,
Right.
like questioning our assumptions, being open to new ways of doing things. Right. It's about imagining new possibilities.
And that's something I think we can all get behind, even if we're not ready to like switch over to a 16-hour work week tomorrow. So if this is the future, right, where we're all working these 16-hour weeks, what does that even look like?
Right.
People have more time for their families, their hobbies, their communities. Paint me a picture.
Mm-hmm.
What are the actual changes?
Yeah, it's not so much about like predicting the future, right?
Yeah.
It's more about, can we even imagine what's possible? Like picture a world where work, it's not everything. It's there to support your life. So you'd have time and energy for relationships, to be creative, to volunteer, or just to chill out without feeling guilty.
I love that. It's not just about working less. It's about what we do with that extra time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what if we valued our well-being more than just being busy all the time?
Exactly. And the cool thing is the book's saying the tech is already here and more people are realizing this makes sense, even economically. Like there's a real movement building towards this.
But as we've been talking about, it's not going to be easy, right? There's a lot of stuff to figure out. It's not like we can just snap our fingers and it happens.
Oh, for sure. It's going to take all of us, like individuals, companies, governments, to really make it happen.
So what can a regular person listening to this right now, what can they do? Like what's our part in all of this?
Well, I think it starts with just questioning things like, do we really believe that working more hours always equals better results? Or are we brave enough to ask for a more balanced workload, even if it means going against that I'm always working culture?
It can be kind of scary to rock the boat, right? Especially when it's your job, your income. But maybe that's how we know something needs to change.
Maybe. It takes guts to stand up for yourself, set boundaries, and put your well-being first, even if it feels weird.
And it's not all on us, right? Like companies and even the government, they have a part to play in making a system that supports this too.
Absolutely. The book talks about companies experimenting with 4-day work weeks or just focusing on results instead of hours, being flexible with schedules, and then they could also help people learn how to manage their time better and avoid burnout.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about the government? What's their role in all of this?
Well, they could give companies reasons to try these things, right? Like rewards or incentives for shorter work weeks or flexible models. And they could make sure there's support for people who are changing jobs or trying something new, like freelancing.
It's complicated, that's for sure. But it seems like at least we got to start talking about it, right? At home, at work, with our friends.
It's like opening our minds to what could be, challenging how we think about work, and just being willing to try stuff.
This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening. So as we wrap up, work less, live more, what's one big takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
You know, the book doesn't have every answer, but it makes you think. And that's what's important, I think, getting people to think differently, both individually and together, about a future where work makes our lives better instead of stressing us out.
I love that. And it doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming thing, right? We can start small. So here's something for everyone listening to think about this week. What's one thing, even a tiny thing, that you could automate, delegate, or just cross off your to-do list this week? Just to get like 1 hour back for yourself.
It's such a simple question, but it can really change how we see things.
Exactly. It's all about taking that first step, big or small, towards a life with more time for what truly matters. And on that note, that's a wrap on our deep dive. Thanks for joining us.